we're coming up, and let's start this intro. We're streaming a little bit, a couple places here. We may not get LinkedIn today. I don't know why. All right, wait for YouTube. Come on, YouTube. Come on, YouTube. You can do it. We're running out of time. Here we go. Let's just start the show. Here we go.
Where does yesterday's future, which is already here, meet today's future, which is about to happen, and tomorrow's future, which could be just minutes away? Welcome to Technology Revolution, the future of now, where host Bonnie D. Graham asks savvy futurists for their predictions about the tech-driven trends that are shaping our future right now. Here's your host, who will take us into the future of now, Bonnie D. Graham.
Thank you to the voice of Ryan Treasure, who gets me on the air. I'm Bonnie D. Happy to be here. And anybody who has, oh my goodness, do you have electricity in your house or your camper or where you are? Do you use water? Something called power. I know. Well, it's time for us to approach my usual topic, the future of some industry plus AI. We're talking about utilities today, and I have three experts on the show who are going to help us go there. We're going to predict what AI can do to help. Remember, we're always positive about benefits and opportunities, and let's see if we've got something to offer for you as a consumer and as people in the technology industry, whatever your niche is. Okay, I'm going to open with, I have some people to introduce here, and let's see who they are. I want you all wave when I call your name. So here we go. Welcome to Technology Revolution, the future of now, where AI meets innovation. And we're going to explore how. Bonnie D on her Scarlett Mic leading the way. Three utilities visionaries. You all have to look like visionaries right now. Lighting up the day. Martin Stenzig, wave hello. Vicki, Zheng, and Crawford Owens too. Predict AI-powered energy breakthroughs for you. From smart grids to sensors where progress is found, the future of utilities in AI can be truly profound. And now I have an opening for each of you. Martin is first. Martin, this is new and fresh. I know you've been on the show many times, but let's see if you like this one. From Hanover's roots to the world stage in view, Martin Stenzig builds systems both trusted and new. A leader in SAP's evolving domain where assets in AI spark smart grid gain. 2 decades of insight, innovation, and art. Martin has mapped transformation from the very start. At Alpha Oak's helm, his strategy is clear. Empower the enterprise, make the future near. A pilot, a beekeeper, a baker by hand, Martin balances logic with life well planned. From Portland to Rainier, his passions align. Curiosity, craft, and connection define. Martin, what'd you think?
Very nice. Very nice. You sort of weaved everything into it. That's nice.
We do. That's what Sylvia and I do, and I'll tell Crawford and Vicki later who Sylvia is. Vicki, you're next. From data dreams in Shanghai to Texas A&M's Hall, Vicki learned how insights empower all. Now SAP's head of business AI, she leads with grace, helping utilities put tech intelligence in place. From O&G fields where precision was key, Vicki saw how smart tools could set teams free. 15 years bridging tech and domain, she wisely turns AI hype into practical gain. A runner, a cook, a gardener in bloom. Vicki's curiosity brightens every room, as it is right now. She blends global vision with purpose and art, connecting AI and people with her both mind and her heart. Vicki?
Love it.
I'm glad. Okay, we need you a little bit louder. Don't forget to project. And Crawford is here, newcomer to me. Welcome from San Diego shores where horizons expand. Crawford Owens learned how to lead in command. The son of a sailor with vision worldwide, he charts enterprise change with wisdom his guide. Now Alpha Oak CSO, savvy and precise, Crawford steers transformation with insight concise. From P&E's grids to Rising's domain, he's modernized systems with strategic gain. A scholar of science, of math, and of mind, Crawford solves tough problems with clarity refined. When workday winds down, his passions ignite on motorcycles or at pool tables into the night. Crawford?
You about summed it up.
As long as you know who that was. So, our smart visionary panelists, the future shines bright as AI set to transform utilities with data driven light. From smart grids to renewables, new pathways ensue. Tune in and stick with us how AI can power up utilities for me and for you. So, Martin, how'd I do on the intro? What'd you think? As good as
I
usual
think
or
I
better? What
think
do you think?
it's a 10 out of 10. As always,
Thank you.
not only did you sort of sum it up perfectly, but it was sort of the right balance between business and pleasure. So I love it.
Thank you very much. I'm glad. I hope your colleagues enjoyed it as well. I enjoyed making these little rhyming intros. I think it's a different way of presenting. I do this when I'm moderating SAP press courses. I do this for the instructors and they say, "What? Seriously? I've never been introduced that way." Well, now you have. Meet me and I'll tell you all who Sylvie is later. So, let's go around the table. I'm going to give you each just a couple of minutes, please. And I'm going to put you on speaker view when you're talking. I'd like to know, fill in the blanks. Martin, it's been a couple months since you've been on any of my shows. You've been on most of them, but fill in the blanks. Tell us a little bit about what you've been up to, a little bit about Alpha Oak. I know you've been working really, really, really hard, many 25 hours a day, I've heard, maybe
Yeah.
26. Tell us a little bit about it, and then we'll go around the table and learn a little more about Vicki and a little more about Crawford. So, Martin, you're on speaker view. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Vic. Thank you, Bonnie. So at Alpha Oak, we're focusing on enterprise asset management, especially in utilities. So this is obviously a very appropriate call for us to participate in. But really, more than anything else, it was surprising to me how successful we are in year one. Usually, year one is sort of one of those starter years where you try to find your bearings. But what happened with us is that we jumped into the market, and the reception, both from people wanting to join us from an employee perspective, as well as customers wanting to have our help after they talk to us for the first time, is just phenomenal. So it's everything that a company owner can dream of. And so yeah, so far, knock on wood, everything is going way better than I thought. I expected, well, we were joking about, well, how many people will we have at the end of the year? And we said, well, if we're crossing the 10 threshold by January, it's going to be massive. Now the question is, are we crossing the 20 to 30 people threshold by the end of year one? So that's sort of gives you an idea of the magnitudes we're talking about. And it's just a great feeling to sort of have the support both from customers as well as from employees to say we're doing the right thing. So it's great.
Congratulations. And utilities are just something we all take for granted, don't we, Martin? There will be electricity coming in unless, I don't know, power lines down. There will be water unless something happens to the tap. And I don't know, we just all assume that there's behind the scenes, it's going to happen and it's going to happen efficiently. And we're going to be able to afford our part of making it happen or receiving the being the
And
recipient. What? Go.
And that's sort of what I always tell people is like we're becoming so dependent and so reliant on it that we don't even know anymore how valuable it is until, it's going out. And everybody looks at each other, it's like, wait, what? Power can go out? Yeah, I mean, if you're living in the South where you have hurricanes and tornadoes, it's more common. But if you're living in states where sort of power outages are not the norm, yeah, people are just getting so used to it. And I grew up in Germany where we barely ever had power outages because you don't have dramatic climate events. So the day the power goes out, everybody looks at each other, it's like, wait, I didn't even realize it could happen. So I'm not even prepared for it. So that's one thing. And then, in the context of AI, the demand on utilities because of AI data centers that are coming up and needing to come up is so great that it sort of has a huge impact on the demand side of what utilities actually have to provide. So it's a really interesting sort
We
of circular,
expect
almost circular thing that we're talking
We
about.
expect a lot. I have two stories to tell later, but I want to meet Vicki. Vicki, I'm putting you on speaker view. Would you please tell us a little more about yourself and how do you know Martin? Go ahead, Vicki.
Thank you, Bonnie. And yes, it is interesting because when Martin mentioned about the enterprise asset management, it is not a really broad one, particularly for the asset intensive industries. So me coming from oil and gas, gas and focusing my first 8 years all in the refineries around energy and oil and gas. I met Martin at the previous, when I jumped to a partner part. So that's where I met the great peoples, all focusing, we're all a little bit nerdy about asset management. And so a few years later, I joined the mothership to try to get my swim lanes from the customers, from the partners to the mothership. Now I'm leading the business AI for the utility, and we come to meet again in so many occasions. So a very exciting time.
A very exciting time indeed, and I'm very, very happy to meet you. And thank you very much. What I'll tell our viewers and our listeners is that we do a countdown before we start the show to check the audio, and each of us did our countdown in a different language. Vicki was Chinese. Crawford did his in Spanish, Martin in German, and me in French. I'm honorary. I can speak French. Okay, there you go. Thank you very much. Crawford, let's get to know a little more about you. Talk to me.
Yeah, so I'm a utilities professional turned consultant. I spent over 25 years in utilities, both in the United States and overseas. Spent a lot of time, as you said in the intro, I'm a nerd when it comes to all things science. I really geek out on tech and trying to solve problems. And, similar to Vicky, I met Martin many years ago, and probably giving my age up, but I met him almost 20 years ago. I was a client of his at a former entity, and then he ended up recruiting me into that business, and we did the consulting thing together in the utility world. So it's been a lot of passion around this industry. I've been at this for almost 30 years, and I can tell you, there's something new around the corner. Just every time you look up.
There you go. Look up and hopefully the lights are on. I'm going to tell you thank you all. Nice to meet Vicki and Crawford. Quick story. I can tell you when there's been a serious or a minor power outage here in my home in Tennessee, because if the power blinks on and off, blips on and off, I will go in the kitchen, and if the clock is still on time on the microwave and the stove, I know it was a minor blip. If the
Hmm.
stove and if those clocks are blinky, it doesn't matter if my computer goes down, the printer will come right back up. But if the power is still on those devices in the kitchen, I know it wasn't that serious. Number two. Number two is when I lived in Great Neck, Long Island, I was in a building that actually Peter Calico built the building. I don't know if you know the name from the infrastructure in New York City and subway system and big buildings. Anyway, they put different power lines on different apartments, different lines in the building. And this was a three-tower building that was connected by a center with three elevators. Okay. Now, sometimes the power would go off in my kitchen, but it was on in the living room and the bedroom because my apartment was split on different electric lines, Vicki. And so the refrigerator is off, everything's melting, but gee, I can read in bed now. So it was the strangest thing to know. And once we had a serious power outage, and I figured out that there were outlets in the hall when the staff used to vacuum it was a very fancy building, used to vacuum the carpets. So I took an orange extension cord I put under my door and I plugged it in. I was working till 3 in the morning. I had a little laptop years ago, and people walked down and they said, how come she's got power and the rest of the building is dark? Somebody saw across the street through my shades that I had a lamp on, and they said, why is apartment 116 lighted up and the building is dark? I figured it out. They basically, the board, which I was on later on, put a ban on using electric cords under the door to power on the common power because we had a generator for the hallways. Anyway, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. Lovely to meet all of you. We have so much to talk about. Now it's time for the fictional quotes. I've asked you each to quote a movie or a TV show or a song lyric that has nothing to do on the surface with our topic. And by the way, Crawford, I have to tell you, I'm a geek as well. Crawford, I'm not telling you how many years ago, but I was a mainframe programmer analyst working on a Xerox Sigma 6 CP5 mainframe, coding in COBOL and key punching my
Hmm.
cards on
Yep.
80 column colorists. So you understand. And then we
Yep.
graduated where we actually had terminals where we could enter the code, and that was in PL1 on an IBM 4341. So I come from
Hmm.
that world. Okay, just
Yep.
wanted you to know. Okay, it sticks with you. Once a geek, always a geek. Anyway, let's go to the quotes. Martin has picked a quote, a very popular quote from the movie Top Gun, 1986 action drama. It's a two-part quote, and not a lot of people know this, but two actors each said part of the quote. Top Gun, directed by Tony Scott, blah, 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 produced by Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer. It stars Tom Cruise, Kelly McGillis, Val Kilmer, Anthony Edwards, Tom Skerritt. And by the way, this was a movie you all would have liked to have been an angel investor on. And the reason why is the budget was $15 million. It grossed $356 million. Just wanted you to know. And the soundtrack went 9 times platinum. Okay, we'll leave that one alone. So here is the quote, and the first part was said by Pete Maverick Mitchell, played by Tom Cruise, and the second part was said by Nick Goose Bradshaw, played by Anthony Edwards. I feel the need for speed. I tried to do that as two people. I didn't do the accents well. Okay, Martin, what are we doing with this speed on our topic today, the future of utilities and AI? Go.
No, I mean, I think I picked this quote before, and it's still so appropriate because I always feel like we're never fast enough. And with AI making us or wanting for us to be ever more changing, we as human beings sort of need to get better and better and better and faster at adopting technologies. So what I tell most of my customers is like in most cases the technology is already there. We just don't know how to absorb it from a human being perspective. I can only do so many changes a year. So we see that in business cases that we're writing. So today, the business cases we need to write sort of have to have the anticipation of what technology is actually there once I get the money approved. So it's a completely new paradigm. Usually, what we've done in the past is we wrote business cases for stuff that we want to implement a year from now, and it wouldn't have changed. Today, we really have to aim ahead of the bow, essentially, to do that. So that is always coming back to this famous quote from Top Gun. Plus, I'm a pilot, love flying, and if I would have my choice, I would certainly fly one of those jets. I tried to make a deal at one of the trade shows years back with Northrop Grumman. That unfortunately didn't quite end up well, but it was a try.
You were grounded, right?
Yeah.
Well, sort of, kind of. Okay, that's something we use about electricity, right? You wanted to be never mind. Okay, Bonnie, going there. Thank you very much. I didn't remember that you used that quote before, but a lot of people use it, and it's a classic. And I think that's underlying those of us who are pro technology. Am I allowed to say that? Pro technology? We are looking for, well, that's why I do this show, Vicki and Crawford. Martin knows this because I'm looking for the benefits and the opportunities. Go talk about your doom and gloom, and we're all going to lose our lives and lose our jobs and all that. Go talk somewhere else about that. I want to talk about the opportunities because it's here. We're plugged in. Utilities comment there, analogy. We're plugged into technology and it's happening. The question is, what are we going to do with it so that it's not doing something to us, but for us and with us? That's the goal. So thank you, Martin. Love the quote. And let's go to Vicki has picked a quote. I watched the movie clip for this, Vicki, and it was powerful. The movie is Gattaca, Gattaca, 1997 dystopian science fiction film starring Vincent Freeman, played by Ethan Hawke, and his brother Anton Jr., played by Lauren Dean. I didn't know who he was. Let's see now. It's Jude Law's in it, and Ernest Borgnine was in it, and Gore Vidal, Alan Arkin. Wow. The film presents a future society driven by eugenics, where children are conceived through genetic selection to ensure they possess the best hereditary traits of their parents. I'm going to read the quote. I watched the scene. It's dramatic. It's done in water. That's a long clip and a lot of splashing and swimming. And then finally, the line you picked is, Anton, I never saved anything for the swim back. Vicki, go ahead. What does this have to do with our topic? We can't wait. Go.
Yeah, so actually, I think I'm also allowed to say I'm also pro technology, right? So one of the things I love about this movie is, as dystopia, it's a sci-fi fiction movie is about, right? But what I'm seeing from that, I guess the line there is that he is, genetically, he is just not as strong as his brother. That's part of the scene. I don't want to spoil that for you, but he was winning the competition because then when they have this chicken, swimming games, basically they need to swim out to the ocean and swim back. So end of the day, he's winning which is giving him the confidence to do what he's wanting to do for his dream, is that he never save anything swimming back. So I think that's one of the things about technology is, like you said, right? We can have a lot of fear, not knowing what's the future going to look like. But, as I always say, the technology does not always go as what we like. I like physical keyboard on my phone, so that's a long gone thing, right? But the thing about as technology evolves, right? It's going to go its own way. It's going to make us to do more efficiently, do more things. Obviously, there will be some maybe ethical related or bias or fear comes with the new technology, but it's part of the change. And so far, we have figured out how to use technology as well to balance it off, right? The first time they see a car when you're driving, a horse cart, people are saying, you guys are going crazy. You're going to break your neck, right? But we figure out safety belts, right? We have, traffic laws. The same thing for, recently I heard this examples, right? We talked about, hey, using generative AI for human resources like interviews and everything could introduce bias. But guess what? There is another use case is about recording the actual interviews and flagging bias by human, which sometimes unconsciously they're doing to remind them and correct them. So technology itself, I don't never think they're a bad thing. It's about how we're fully understanding the potentials and use them in the right ways so we can, in general, getting better and more efficient. That's how, I guess, our species survives, right?
I like that. I like everything you said. Thank you very much. Very, very interesting. If you haven't seen the movie, Crawford and Martin, have you seen the movie Gattaca?
Yeah,
You
great
have.
movie.
Okay,
Hmm.
yeah, that swimming scene with the two of them going out and you're hearing the water and it's dark and the ocean is the water is bobbing and they're bobbing. He says, I didn't save anything for the swim back. Very, very interesting selection, Vicky. And Martin, don't take this the wrong way. Vicky, it's always nice to have a new quote from a new movie that I'm not familiar with that nobody in all of these years has ever used on my show. So thank you very much, Vicky. I appreciate that.
Glad to be
Martin,
the first.
there you go. Oh, always first. Let's go. And we have, I think somebody used this quote a couple of years ago, Crawford, but it's a beautiful quote spoken by Wizard Gandalf, played by Ian McKellen. The movie is The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, 2001 epic fantasy adventure film, and the first in a series of three. Lord of the Rings, directed by Peter Jackson, based on the 1954 novel. Wow, that was a long time ago. J.R.R. Tolkien. And Peter Jackson was one of the co-writers of the screenplay, I found out. And they named the films based on the chapters, the sections of the novel. Fellowship of the Ring, 2001, The Two Towers, 2002, The Return of the King, 2003. That's a lot of movies in 3 years. One of the greatest and most influential films ever made. One of the highest grossing film series of all time. Okay, it left Top Gun in the shade here. $2.991 billion worldwide, and it won 17 out of 30 Oscar nominations. My goodness gracious. And I'm just going to go ahead and read the quote and let Crawford relate it to the topic. The quote is, all we have to do is decide what to do with the time that is given us. What a beautiful quote. Crawford, relate it to the topic, please.
So, in related to the topic, as we know, we talk about AI, and when you look at the media, you hear a lot of hype about how much time it's going to save and how much more efficiency you're going to gain from it. But when you have these efficiencies that you'll gain from embellishing or going into AI, the key thing is what are you going to do with that extra time? As an industry, utilities have been around collectively about 100 years. If you take around the globe, everyone started down the electrical pathway about 100 years ago, gas a little bit before that. So we have some very old, decrepit technologies out there that no one wants to claim, right? On paper, but we know that it's out there. With this newfound time that we have with better analysis, right? With better able to look at the markets, look at how our systems are going to be stressed based upon demand. We should take that extra time that we have and reinvest it into our infrastructure as a community, right? As a utility concern, we should be looking at how we take the things that we're going to learn from AI, from the analysis that comes in, and how to improve our systems to make them better for longevity, not for us today, but for the future challenges that we can foresee that's coming. A lot of data centers are being built, powering the broadcast we're on today. Takes a lot of power to do that, and that puts a lot of stress on the current grid. So as we're bringing AI in and fostering it into this future, we also need to take time to build the infrastructure underneath with the people that we have so we can continue to grow in a positive direction.
Thank you very much. As the three of you are speaking about your quotes, I'm thinking that it it requires a mindset of leadership to understand what you're all talking about, doesn't it? To say, don't be afraid, think positively. With the time we have gained, Crawford, what do we do with it? Where in the infrastructure should we put our time and our money and our human talent and our human intelligence and maybe more AI to improve that instead of saying, oh no, AI, it's going to kill us all. We need leaders who can understand. Listen, I was the last kid on the block to buy a microwave oven. How many don't even go back in time? What is this thing? You put it on, it's a box. It's there. You put foil in it. It catches on fire. Well, I don't need one of those. Anyway, it's just very interesting that the power, I'm using that analogy to our power, our utilities. You get that already. It's interesting that the power of AI is something that people are still afraid of because it's new, but it's not that new. I
Mhm.
think our awareness of it and the power of it is what's new, what's happening now. So I'm going to get off my philosophy perch and go to the predictions part of the show. Martin, I'm picking your prediction number one. I will read it and I'd like you to unpack it, take 2 or 3 minutes, and then I'm going to ask Vicki and Crawford to comment. And remember, you don't have to agree with Martin. It's not that kind of a show. Okay. It's not a popularity contest. So Martin said, AI will become the silent team member in utility business transformation. Whenever utilities reinvent themselves and upgrade or introduce new software and business processes, AI will function to document meetings, bring document content suggestions. I'm adding the sound effects, Martin, and increase operational efficiencies of the transformation project as well as the business process. What a thought. Martin, unpack it for us, add a little more to it, and let's go around the table. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's this is sort of the basics. Yeah. So let's start with the transformation activity. So a lot of utilities are going through transformational changes. They've outlived their current systems. So it has been 20 plus years for a lot of them. So a lot of them are sort of, rejuvenating their IT landscape, which then coincides with a big shift in the system integrator industry as well. So, but when you're watching these transformations being modeled and built and really executed along the way, is like the people that are working on them, anything from project managers to team leaders to team members to consultants, they're all using their day-to-day tools, and those day-to-day tools have morphed. Yeah, rather than having a pencil and a piece of paper 20 years ago, to hey, we used Word in order to write a document, to hey, let me just hit a button, and that button is called, Copilot X or whatever, and it's transcribing the meeting as we are speaking. So gone are the days of needing two additional people on the project that are actually doing only busy work with writing up summaries. All of that is done automatically. So we're seeing that AI is morphing into this secret but not so secret member of the team, where 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we would have had, five team members sitting in a meeting because two of them are doing nothing else but sort of making sure that we're getting all the details out and writing documents or creating graphics. Today, you're describing a graphic, and 5 seconds later, AI gives me sort of a perfect representation of what I wanted to have on a slide. So PowerPoint presentation, follow up from meetings, all of that is sort of going into the AI domain, and that's sort of what I meant with my first prediction. It's that silent team member that we see more and more coming into those business transformation, and it's not just utility specific. It's like all across our IT business, where AI is doing all the busy work. That leads us to some other interesting sort of dynamics, which we might come to later in the show. But the first point is, all the busy work that we always did, that is the first thing that AI is sort of reducing out and removing. Good for us, because nobody wanted to do that busy work anyways. But that's sort of where we see AI stepping in big time.
Thank you very much. Let's go around the table. Vicki or Crawford, who wants to go first? Just a couple comments. Somebody
I
wiggle a
can
finger. Crawford, go, go.
I'll wiggle. So the thing that I'll add to that about the silent partner is not just the PowerPoint part of it, which is absolutely, because I was one of those people early in my career in utility. I was the guy taking the notes, but it's also the analytics, right? So you spend a lot of time trying to gather data, try to compile it, to take all this data and change it into useful information. with AI being that silent partner at the table, you can do a lot of that heavy lift initially with the AI tools doing that. So now you spend that time where you're in that meeting, you're spending less time trying to figure out what's the right data, what's the right data source, and more of here's the data as it's presented in the information. Here's my dashboard. What business decisions are we going to make based upon what's now been exposed to us? So you're cutting the curve down on decision making, number one. And number two, to Martin's point, you're able to take a lot of that busy work out of the office and really use people for what they're best at, which is trying to interpret all the different variables that are coming at them.
I feel the need for speed, right? That goes right to the quote. Vicky, talk to us. What
Yeah.
do you think?
I'm actually thinking something beyond that as well, because when I started my career boots on the ground, right, there are just so many people has been working in the asset intensive industries for many, many years. They're walking, like a gym, right? They have so much tribal knowledge that is in their mind. But as we all know, a lot of the industries are facing the labor shift, right? Those tribal knowledge without proper documentation, they're walking out of the door. So I do think with a lot of the unstructured data, either scrabbled, through the different, text messages, files and document notes, maybe, Crawford, you mentioned, if they are not be able to properly organize the being able to use to bring the insights, those are great information we're losing, from a knowledge perspective. So I absolutely think like AI, generative AI particularly could be a great help for that, for us to keep that knowledge and use them, for training, for continuously improvement, to be able to truly leverage those.
Thank you very much. And Vicky, I'm just going to bring in part of your prediction number two, which I was going to pick, but I'm just going to use this as an add-on to this part of the conversation, and I'm going to read a different one. But Vicky says AI will be a tool for your employees to become experts. Operationally, there are a lot of low value added and repeated tasks, right, Martin, that consume a lot of employees' time and attention. In the utilities industry, AI will be able to address some of the tasks either through machine language, machine learning, automation, and Gen AI. Your employees can scale and put more effort on strategic and high value added tasks. So, Vicky, I hope you don't mind I read that, but I think that goes perfectly for this part of the conversation. Martin, anything you want to add? This was your lead-off prediction here before I move on.
No, but to Vicky's addition there, I totally agree. So there's a couple of things that I want to build on.
Yep.
Number one, the retirement factor. Yeah, in a lot of management classes, it's always about retiring out most expensive and sort of senior talent. But I think what has been always forgotten is exactly the factor that Vicky has just brought up, which is, hey, how do we capture that knowledge? How do we make
Mhm.
sure is that we're not just letting them go? I have so many over the years, I have so many discussions with retirees or upcoming retirees that are all smiling, and you're sitting there, I'm like, why are you smiling? Are you so looking forward to your retirement? Part of it is obviously, yes, they're looking forward to the retirement, but the other part is they know because their institutional knowledge is still in their head, and nobody has done a good job of sort of taking it out of their head and putting it into something that is consumable. So they are smiling in part because they know that 5 minutes after they are out of the door, they will get a
Bye-bye.
consulting contract back to come back at an even higher priced fee to bring the knowledge that they have in their brain back to the organization. So Vicky, you nailed it on that one. Yeah. The other thing is this concept of supporting the utility worker. Yeah. So with all of that data that we have, we will be able to have AIs, chatbots, Siri type environments where you talk to your phone to really ask them some deeper questions than, hey, what's the weather in Chicago today? But really sort of saying, hey, I'm looking at a power pole that has these kinds of the situation is X and Y. What's the next best thing I should be doing? Or what is the average replacement cost for the pole I'm standing in front of? Those things are not readily available in AI quite yet. But in my opinion, again, there's nothing really standing in the way technology-wise from doing this today. We just need to put the pieces of the puzzle together and make them work for utilities technicians in the field, but also for utilities executives in the back office.
Thank you. And I'll give you all a quick anecdote. I think Crawford will appreciate this. Maybe you all will. there's a place, Vicky, where the tribal knowledge is buried, and it's called computer code. And when I took on a job as the student services programmer for a company called Otis, Oregon Total Information System, not the elevator company, I discovered what's called spaghetti code. And spaghetti code is basically the path, the cookie crumbs, the breadcrumbs, if you will, like Hansel and Gretel, the breadcrumbs of where everybody who touched the program has left their mark, their signature, their stamp of approval or disapproval or OMG. How could I fix this? And you go in and you find this person thought this should be a go around, this should be a wraparound, this should be a top down, this should be a place where the code is supposed to go. And you're looking at basically a pot of spaghetti with all kinds of sauces on it. You have to try and find the strings, and that's where tribal knowledge is often buried without documentation. There you go. And I want to ask a question to you, anybody. Is the new fiber optics and our cables that power our internet in our homes, is that considered utilities?
Oh yeah, it's telco.
Oh, yeah. I just found out that if my neighbors who were going with fiber optics have to pay for their own trenches to be dug from where the cables were put in the street 6 months ago, they dug
Hmm.
up the lawns, they dug up the easements in front of people's houses. They were here for days with big equipment and big noisy, and they cut lines without telling people. And I lost internet in the middle of a job I was doing where I was required to, I was being paid as a moderator for a course, and everything went down, and I had to power it off of my phone the rest of the day. And they cut water lines, they cut water mains. There were cords all over the street, cable cords, and everybody here is saying, "Oh, we want faster internet." Most of the people here are retired, and I say, "What for?" I'm sorry. What for? Will your free cell be faster? Will your solitaire game go faster? Anyway, just a comment that it's interesting when we find out that Martin and Vicki and Crawford, that utilities own the easements in front of us. They've got permission to come into our lives, and we don't have any say about it. They just arrive one day and say, "Oh, we're going to modernize everything, and we're going to cut up and tear up and make noise and leave dirt and gravel all over the place and mess up." Anyway, my rant is over. Thank you very much.
I'll give you a
Yeah,
small public service announcement for
please
everyone out there
do.
in
No
podcast land.
company
There's
mentioned.
a
No,
there's a, there's a thing called Before You Dig. If you're in the continental United States, all 50 states have it. You
811.
call 811 and they will come out and mark. So whoever's out there digging, either the marks were bad or they didn't have them at all, because they should have missed to get that much on one swing. Hey, that's pretty.
It was really something. They
That's
broke
Hall of
three.
Fame material.
They broke three water main lines, and they broke lines miles away. My hairdresser told me their computers were down. They couldn't take credit cards. They had to take checks and cash from everybody. Everything was down for miles around. And I called 811. It took a week to get them to come when I was going to have the lawn aerated. And I need to know where my cable is. It's coming from the side of the house. I'm on a corner property with 4 yards, and it goes to the corner. And then I called the aeration company and I said, "I'm canceling because I can't afford to have you digging in 2 to 4 to 6 inches in the lawn and disrupting my lifeline, which is my Spectrum cable." And when I had the trees taken out on the corner, re-landscaping, the gardeners came with shovels and picks, and they carefully went an inch at a time until they could find the cable on the corner. And they marked it with a box on it so that when the new trees go in, they don't cut the cable. That's how hard it is to 811 notwithstanding. It was unbelievable. Anyway, I've been through the trenches with this. Thank you very much. Vicki, let's go to your prediction number two. Number three, I like this one. And you need to explain it because I have no idea what it is. Vicki says knowledge graph will be a key asset for every utilities customer. While companies leverage AI with their existing system and data sets, knowledge graphs unique to the organization will serve as the secret weapon for AI to perform efficiently with less hallucination. Okay, there's so many keywords and buzzwords in there, Vicki. Could you just please give us a dictionary of what this all means? What's a knowledge graph and what kind of hallucinations are we having? I'm not having any today. Go ahead.
In kind of a layman's term, I think knowledge graph is something basically provide the contextual meaning, right, of data. So a lot of times people think like, if I can cramp enough data set into like an engine, the best model out there, obviously I'm gonna have all the magic coming out, all my answers being resolved, give me 42 as an answer, right? In case you know that reference, right? Since we're all kind of geeky here. But the thing is the fact that, some people, I even tried it very long time ago when large language model was initially, essentially invented or discovered. They actually crammed a lot of the data into it, hoping for some simple question. And the answer was very far away, not even accurate, far away, just because essentially, any technology, if you always think that's going to be a silver bullet solving all your problem, you're probably in the wrong path. Because I think the right way to look into the technology is to understand its limits and where we can better use it. So knowledge graph in this way, I sometimes talk about, if you are, let's say, working in the utility companies, right? For everything, it's not just a one thing, right? Even for the people who show up, behind the people showing up doing the digging, there's actually a lot of requests, a lot of scheduling, coordinating a lot of people, understanding their skills. Do they have certificates? What's going to be paid? How the invoice is going to happen. So all of those things, we took that for granted because we know this is how typically thing works. But that doesn't mean large language model, especially general large language model, who are trained basically by swallowed the entire internet, would automatically understand that. So I think this is where, if we're doing a common process, right? We know we go to a store, we pick up our goods, we pay for it, we're leaving. That's a simple one. However, utility, particularly, we have different regions, there's local regulations, their internal processes sometimes is their secret weapon, right? For staying competitive. So those processes will be very important to make sure, yes, I'm leveraging large language model. However, they also have to be put into meanings. So I want your answer to be both relevant and also less hallucination. Because let's face it, right? Using ChatGPT to write an email or write a story, bedtime stories. I do that for my daughter sometimes. It's no big deal if they make a mistake, they make up something, right? However, if we're thinking about cutting a check, create a PO, right? Those are the things that I can't afford to have those kind of errors. So I think that's what I meant by making sure, if you don't know how the process should be or SOPs, it's important to maybe check your inventories, right? Use that time you saved by taking notes to go back to see what's the best practice, what I found I can improve strategically. And second step is how I'm going to re-implement that best practice into my day-to-days. So we don't just leave the SOPs or best practice hanging without people knowing or following that. So I do think that's a very important piece. And hopefully I can share to the broader team that, large language model, Gen AI, they're never a silver bullet to solve all our problems.
There you go. No panacea, no silver bullet. Crawford, want to say anything?
Yeah, I was just going to actually agree with Vicki on that because, again, you have to have the human intervention, right, in order for the model to work and to learn. So, as I said earlier, you got to take that time where you get these efficiencies and put that human effort into making things more efficient, making the models better, and actually making decisions that improve the system overall, whether it be the back office system that helps you to maintain the utility or the infrastructure itself, which is critical. So, yeah, I'm in complete agreement with what Vicki just said.
Thank you. Martin, brief comments, thoughts?
Context is everything. If you have an Excel sheet of just pure data, but you don't know what the columns and the rows mean, then you can sort of see the correlation, but you still don't know what correlates to what. So
I would like to see AI train employees in the utilities business so that they know I won't use the bad word that starts with S and ends with T. But that's what I would like. A quick example, when I moved from Durham, North Carolina here to Tennessee, the people at the cable company in Durham told me I could bring my modem and my router with me to Tennessee. And they were very friendly and said, just plug and play, Bonnie. Get there, just plug it in. You'll be up in no time running. Well, I got here and tried to collect, and they said, there's a different region. It's different codes. Who in the hell told you that? They lied through their teeth. It is in the middle of everything with a 53-foot moving truck on a Saturday. Had to be up and running in my business by Monday. Took a 45-minute drive to a you-know-what store and turned it in. They said, why are you doing with this? I said, well, I need the one that works in this region. They gave me a new one, came back, found out there were 7 different taps into this house from every different service. And the company that had the cable had no map of where the actual live connection to the house was. We had to have somebody go out and try node 1 and 2. No. Spectrum on the phone with me for 3 hours. 1 and 2. No. Try 3 and 4. No. Try 5 and 6. No. Finally, 7 and 8 was the one with the live tap. And there's a dish on the roof from another service. Everything was used in this house in the 20 years before I bought it. And nobody, and I said, don't you people have a map of where your cable comes into my house and which tap on the outside comes? And they said, no, we don't have anything like that. Vicki and Martin and Crawford, isn't it time that somebody mapped out where their lines are? Am I asking for too much? Seriously? And then they
No.
recoded. They put a new password on the router and I couldn't, and that was another 2 hours on the phone with somebody. It was like an 8 hour day. Finally got it up. Anyway, I'm going to move on to prediction. I'm looking at the clock here. We got plenty of time. Crawford, I'm combining two of your predictions because I love them so much. I love Vicky's and Martin's too, but I'm combining one and two. So let me read them both and then you can tackle this any way you want. Crawford says AI will help utilities see around corners by analyzing patterns in weather, in grid demand, in equipment performance. We're talking about the actual infrastructure here. AI will let utilities predict issues before they happen. The result will be fewer outages, faster recovery times, and a grid that adapts in real time to whatever the world throws at it. That was prediction one, and I'm going to add two, which you're all talking about. AI will transform how field crews work by pairing human skill with digital precision. Imagine a line worker guided by real-time insights that highlight safety risks before they're visible. AI will make every job safer, faster, smarter by amplifying human expertise rather than replacing it. There's so much in here. Crawford, take it apart any way you want. Tackle any of it. This is good stuff. Go.
So let's take it from this angle. I want to use the example that you talked about, all the lines that were coming into the house, right? To make it something simple, a little less life-threatening, right?
Mhm.
So if you look at the model of having mapped that out, and if you had an AI model that each time someone connected to the house and mapped back to where the source was, meaning what company it was, what type of service it was, that meant every time a technician came out, they would already know what node to attach to for whichever service. The other thing that would help the utilities out, we have a lot of stranded infrastructure where we leave things behind, right? That we actually have to remove. And it's a very big problem underground in the industry of having to remove different infrastructure after its service life is up. This is another case of, well, being able to have a model out there that says, hey, there was a customer here, they're no longer on our system. We never showed a ticket to remove infrastructure. Let's get that out to the next available crews in an area that's going to be doing an install. They can also pop down the street a mile away and go ahead and remove that and get that off the system. That takes risk for the company out, right? Every time you leave infrastructure behind that you own, that puts the company at risk if anything does happen, because it's still your infrastructure, even though it's not quote unquote live, right? But if there is some incident, you're still accountable for that. So that's one way to help see around corners. Another way, when looking at the weather and weather patterns, we're living in a time where, we're seeing a lot more effects by climate. We're seeing things happen in places that normally didn't have types of events that are occurring. And because of that, being able to do these models and generate what would be the impact if a storm was at certain amount of intensity over a given period in a time of year, what type of staffing would I need to have, available to me, whether it be in-house, contracted, or mutual aid, depending on the severity of the issue. Those types of things will help us to, one, better predict in the industry when things are going to happen, so we can firm up the infrastructure for those types of events as they're unfolding. The other thing it does, that when you're in the action of that event, having the systems with smart sensors on there, where AI is able to then read off the sensors to help you predict where the most probable points of outages are, where their source, being able to look at smart meters and tell if there's a back feed that's coming back through a power line. That's going to make, our line workers more safe as they're out there in the field. Gas workers are being able to find priority valving to shut off gas events, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, what it does, it helps you to give a better situational awareness over an issue, whether it be in a predictive model or where you're actually in the throes of an event. And by being able to do that, you're making it safer for the employees that are operating on the system. You're making it safer for the customers that, they want to be able to do their podcasts without their power being out, right? And they don't want their groceries
Hello.
to go bad and run power cords under doorways. So because of that, right, having that AI model in place makes you a better utility provider of service, and the customer's happier with you and your ability to respond.
Interesting. Thank you. You ticked all the boxes there. That was great. I'm looking at the clock. We got about 7 more minutes. Plenty of time. Vicki, anything you want to say to add on to Crawford's prediction?
Absolutely. Like Sim mentioned, my background is coming from the asset management, and
Hmm.
the predictive maintenance is not a new concept. However, for the longest time, for a variety of reasons, sometimes I do think it's because we're so heads down doing reactive work, right? Maybe the busy work, maybe the repetitive work. We're not taking take a step back to see how can we prevent things from happening instead of fixing them really quickly. I understand everybody want to be the firefighter hero to put down the fire. However, it is expensive and risky and not safe and not good for customer satisfaction to have that happen in the first place. So absolutely, I'm all support Crawford talking about can we be more predictive, and I think AI is the perfect kind of tools in this use case.
Thank you. Martin, thoughts? 2 minutes.
Uh, no, I'm just skipping this one.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll tell you another story. When I was here 3 months, the first year I was here, on a Saturday morning at around 8 o'clock in the morning, the power went down on purpose. It was 26 degrees. It was December. The power company decided to cycle through and give certain parts of the community power and take it away from the rest of us. Nobody was notified. There were no phone calls. There were no emails. They put it on Nextdoor. I don't like to use Nextdoor. It's just a never mind. It's people just ranting and raving about everything. I stopped using it. I had no idea. I'm sitting here in my kitchen having breakfast, brand new in the house, not the new house, but me. And it's 26 degrees. I'm trying to stay warm, heats up, and all of a sudden everything goes whoosh, and the house just gets quiet. Everything goes off. The heat goes off. The lights go off. The computer goes off. Everything goes off with no warning. They did it again a couple of days later because they said it was so cold that the infrastructure was affected so much by the freezing that they had to determine only a certain amount of customers got power, and they did it on a basis where we were off for like 45 minutes and then we were back on again, and you never knew. Sometimes they did it at night. Isn't that exciting watching TV? And my kids bought me little lanterns, little battery, and they're all over the house just in case. Anyway, if AI could have found a way, what a thought, that before it went out, a message, an emergency message on Alexa, for those of us who have it, could have come across, warning, mandatory power outage. You got 14 minutes. Make sure you heat that coffee and heat that oatmeal and get your power on your blanket and whatever you have, because it's going out, kids, and we're taking charge of it. Wouldn't that have been nice? This is from a real customer standpoint. And I know you're all talking about infrastructure in the big picture, but when it all comes down to it, we're the consumers. Every one of you is a consumer of what you're doing. Martin, with the utilities industry, we care because we are drinking that water. Maybe we are using that power. We're powering our podcast, right, Crawford? So very, very interesting. I'm going to go around the table. Thank you all for the wonderful predictions. I'm going to go around the table and ask you, if you had one prediction of no more than 3 sentences. I'm looking at the clock. We got about 4 minutes left. One prediction that you would like to see come true to evolutionize or revolutionize the utilities industry in all of its shapes and forms and sizes. What would you like to see AI do the first thing in terms of really making change for good? I'm going to go backwards on this one. Crawford, you're first because you were third on the lineup. Surprise, pop quiz. What do you think? What would you like to see?
So I'd like to see we utilize AI and the predictive models more effectively for the utilities, and then enable the digital technology, the sensors and whatnot we've been spending the last couple of decades installing to help feed data to those models so that they are better, and have people in the industry using more of that human time to interpret that information and make better decisions.
Make better decisions. I like that a lot. Those mandatory power outages might not have been needed, right, Martin, if they were managing it correctly to begin with. Vicki, what's your prediction for where you would like to see AI most make the change, make something really good and positive, let's say in the next 3 to 5 years? No, next 2 to 3 years. Let's go near term.
Sure. I think the reliability is definitely one of them. So, having a better communication, because I'm also an end customers, right? A lot of times we understand how thing has to be the certain ways, but involving with the customers, because end of the day, utility is our living and breathing, foundations we cannot live without. So I would have, hope that AI could help with that as well, reliability and customer communication.
I like that. You're talking my language here. Martin, what do you think?
For me, it sort of builds on what Vicky said. I call it transparency. On the utility side, there might be lots of complexities, as in we need to extend the feeder line first before we can set the service for you. But the customer wants to see it, and I always bring the Domino's Pizza example in 5 to 6 steps. I put in my application, you're working on the design, the crew is coming out there, the expected finish date is X. We can, and I can help us today with sort of the consolidation of the complexities that we see internally within the utility companies and making that much, much simpler to the customer, all the while keeping transparency on it with regulatory compliance to say, yes, we're in time, we're complying with this, but most of all, you, me, Crawford, Vicky, we all have transparency as in, hey, my service is going to be installed 2 weeks from now. I can rely on that, and they will hit that date. So it's all about transparency of what's happening behind the scenes to giving that to the customer in an easy to understand fashion. And it's not just to the customer, even to internal stakeholders that want to know that.
I like reliability. I like that a lot. This is for all of you. Getting some sound effects up here, and then we're going to close. I appreciate the three of you. Isn't that, see, Martin, such a fancy show now. Here we go. Listen up.
Are you tired of hearing the future is already here? We are too. That may have been yesterday's future, but today's future hasn't happened yet. Take a deep breath, tune out the hype, the noise, and turn up the volume. Savvy, art of the possible technology visionaries talking about how today's innovations right now are shaping every aspect of our real future. We'll laser focus our spotlight on buzzworthy tech like artificial intelligence, machine learning, Internet of Things, augmented reality, and lots more. Clear your calendar and open your mind for Technology Revolution, the future of now. With the most upbeat host on global radio, Bonnie D. Graham. Listen anywhere, anytime, on any device.
Thank you very much. We recorded that about 8 years ago. Can you believe that? And we had all of the right buzz. I love to play that outro. Vicky, it was lovely to meet you. Crawford, same. Martin, come back. And can I make a prediction? We're going to go out in a second. I make a prediction. You're all going to come back and do a part 2 with me in a couple of months. Would you like to do that? And let's focus on specific utility industries. That's one of you on water, one of you on power. Well, let's see if we can really dive into what people really want to hear from a consumer standpoint. Everybody wave goodbye to social.